We are going to continue our conversation on AI. As you can tell, that's our theme for today. AI is clearly one of the most powerful tools of this decade, but I'll have to admit that it is far from flawless. We've all seen these stories of chatbots that have gone off script, or those graphics that just don't quite look human or quite right. This session explores how to balance automation with human decision-making. Our panelists will share their experience improving AI accuracy and how they keep humans in the loop. I'm thrilled to introduce the panel. We have Andrew Tweed, GM of Fruit Gifting at 1-800-Flowers, Suruchi Shukla, VP of Marketing at Minted, Andy Laudato, COO of Vitamin Shoppe, Fayez Mohamood, co-founder and CEO of Bluecore, and it's moderated by Andrea Wasserman, executive coach at the Executive Express, and Forbes retail contributor. Please join me in giving them a warm welcome as they come to the stage.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. That's the first step, getting on the right couch, right?
Yes,
so now
that's
that
right.
we've done that, we are here for the conversation about AI. We're all really excited to be here today, I think for some similar reasons and some different reasons. Obviously, so much to talk about. And this conversation today will really focus on the collaboration that naturally happens or needs to happen between people who are actually running businesses and doing the day-to-day work, and AI, which of course we're all trying to incorporate into our businesses. So as we kick off, each panelist will introduce themselves. On my end, I can say that, again, I'm an executive coach, I'm a business consultant, so this idea of how people and technology work together is one that's near and dear to me, and one that I'm really happy to be facilitating this conversation on today. So with that, I want to kick off by just having each panelist here share a little bit about what human in the loop means in the context of e-commerce and AI. From your perspective, just give us a little bit of context as we think about defining that. Let's start right here.
Awesome. Hey, everyone. My name is Fayez. Easy way to remember that. It's just like fries, but without the R. I'm co-founder and CEO of Bluecore, and we recently acquired Albi, which is our shopping agent. We've powered over 15 million conversations in a pre-sales context. So we think a lot about human in the loop in the context of how do you take some of the traditional rules-based technologies and really teach a sales associate and agent in more modern ways. So there's a lot to talk about in terms of how you train the brain, which is hopefully what we can talk about.
All right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Andy Laudato. I'm the COO at the Vitamin Shoppe. I'm the co-founder of the Retail AI Council, and also call myself an AI tinkerer. A lot of studies show that young people, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, soon to be Gen Beta, that they really do embrace AI, but at the same time, they're craving human connection. I think we're seeing this in store traffic numbers coming back. So ultimately, the best implementations of AI will do the mundane and boring tasks and really free people up to have more of those interactions that we all enjoy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Suruchi. I run marketing at Minted, and Minted is a premium stationery and home decor marketplace. And I was thinking about this topic, it was hard to fathom how quickly we are talking about human in the loop. Just a few decades ago, we were talking about machines in the loop. So it means multiple things to me. First of all, it's about checks and balances. You know, AI doesn't have a lot of regulations yet. It's also a little bit of a trust factor that I don't think is fully there with AI. So we don't want AI to just be booking a first-class ticket for me or buying a house on my behalf. So there's a lot of those checks and balances. Even as we are building and producing brand imagery and copy, we want a human in there to make sure your brand's tone and voice is coming across. Secondly, for me, there are a lot of processes that we have that are complex business processes that have both a quant and a qual aspect to it, right? And so quant you can send to AI, but when we, like as an example, when we do merchandising on our site, there is things like visual appeal, diversity of design. Those things are very hard to feed into an AI model. So I think a human in the loop there is important. But honestly, there's a third aspect of this to me. In the world where AI is becoming increasingly a part of our lives, I think human connection and human touch is going to become more and more important. And Minted, our ethos is very much grounded in humans producing design. We work with thousands of artists around the globe who are designing for us. And we've also built services where a human works with you to design your wedding with you. And they're doing this over months of time. So I do think human in the loop can mean many different things, including a human connection.
Andrew Tweed, I'm the GM of fruit gifting at 1-800-Flowers, manage a few brands like Sherry's Berries and Fruit Bouquets. Just going off of what Suruchi said, the thing that we do is gifting. So we help people express, connect, and build more and better relationships. As part of that, kind of adopting and embracing AI, we still look at it as something where you don't want to lose that human connection. And so the question becomes not just what are our internal teams doing, it's how do you get the customer in that loop? And part of that really stems from the fact that you can personalize to the nth degree now, content's going to become sort of unlimited, but how do you think about human intuition factoring into that and making sure that you're meeting customers where they are and having that experience that still taps into it? So try to get the best of both worlds, but have that come together in the same time.
And given that these experiences are evolving, obviously every day there is a new AI partner we can work with or a different use case for it, how has the role of human oversight also evolved as you think about where people need to get involved in some of these experiences? Fayez, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think obviously in a place where AI is generating customer experience, obviously that gets a ton of highlight. We all have been in the shoes of receiving that email from the CEO where, why did this happen on the website or on the app or on the email? I think part of what we're doing is educating folks that we have to start with the consumer, right? And one of the things that we're finding out is how do you measure customer satisfaction? And you can quantify that very easily. We have north of 85% CSAT across 15 million conversations. So if you're going to start there, then you can start breaking down what does oversight mean? Where do you need to kind of guide and provide guardrails into the AI? And where can you test your assumptions, right? A lot of these things are testable. As an example, obviously we don't want a shopping agent to hallucinate, but a tiny bit of hallucination actually leads sometimes to a better shopping experience. You don't want it to hallucinate when somebody asks for an order where it's very discreet, right? So there's a whole set of learning and guardrails capabilities where we are all learning and we're training our folks, much like I always say humans hallucinate too, but we train humans and we ask them to get better. So it's kind of the same approach versus treating it as a black and white.
Mm-hmm. So some of that evolution is really happening proactively through the training and saying this is where it needs to change.
Yeah, exactly. And in some cases, it's way better than what you would do with rules-based software, where we recently started training our agent with playbooks, much like you would train a human, which was impossible to do prior to that, right? And you're trying to figure out how to make this complex rule set work.
Mm-hmm. Andy, I saw you nodding there. Is that similar to what you're seeing or anything to add?
Yeah, I'd add that in the early days when you roll out a new agent or LLM, you want to kind of put training wheels on it, right? Talk about training. You wouldn't just let your kid go wreck their bike. So when it's new, have the human read it, watch it, tweak it, and over time maybe you let it free a bit.
Mm-hmm. Andrew, what is working really well with AI and e-commerce right now? Is it personalization, customer service, more operational? How are you thinking about that for the fruit gifting business, or what are you seeing?
There's a combination of specific areas. The thing that we've seen, especially sort of at the early stages of this, has been trying to shift the mindset of employees around this first. And I think that if you were to take functions that people have or some of these areas and teams that would operate sort of like a scalpel model where someone's built up their craft over time, we're trying to build Swiss Army knives and get people who are cross-functional tackling these same problems, whether it's creative search or otherwise. So a lot of the problems that we actually have, we try to go out and have the person who is not the analytical individual actually tackle that. Vice versa, if you need creative production, how do I get the same person over here? So I think what that's unlocked is the ability for everybody to kind of up-level what they're doing, and the impacts, I think largely on the creative data and other fronts, has been one where, like I mentioned, trying to meet people and the customer where they are, has freed up certain people to focus on the high leverage parts of their job, this classic job, and then also kind of diversify their skill set and help other areas, whether I'm a creative helping a data scientist, allow them to go and double down on the places that matter most. So I think that mindset shift has been a huge factor in this, and the impact with ROI in other places, you can kind of see it go along, but I think the evolving piece of that is really exciting.
And so it sounds like some of the impact is on the people, the collaboration opportunity, the mindset shift, as you put it. And what about in terms of the customer experience? Is there a particular impact that you're pinpointing there? It doesn't need to be quantified by any means, but where do you feel like it's moving the needle?
Yeah, well, I'll give you a very specific example of this. So our team identified someone who has a deep relationship with the brand over time. Her grandfather gave her these gifts back in the day. She posted this exuberant thing on social that was her fiance providing her the same gift. So suddenly our creative team was like, we need to fly out there and shoot a video for Valentine's Day. Well, we have our day-to-day operations, and our sort of paid acquisition lead went out and started generating Gen AI videos to help bolster our performance there. So customer experience on product for those marketing channels are there. But then our larger, how do you kind of touch the customers who may also have that cross-generational gifting and put that out in the marketplace on connected TV or other areas. I think there was an interesting balance of sort of informing the experience of people consuming the brand potentially for the first time with the product, but then the actual real important relationship building still came about. And I think for us, those are areas where the balancing act of someone pitching in while opening it up has been pretty palpable, and we've seen customer feedback from that in terms of how they react to the brand.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yeah.
And I think the balance of both human and AI, and also just the takeaway that you were able to act so quickly without overthinking it, is a good takeaway for the audience. Yeah. Moving slightly away from e-commerce, which I know you were just speaking to, Andy, your scope being as broad as it is, where are you seeing the impact of AI even beyond e-commerce?
Yeah, well, of course, customer care, which is related, a lot of opportunities with customer care. On the development side, building software more quickly, rapid prototyping, all kinds of opportunities. A lot of us, we A/B test, so hey, let's make 2 different PDPs and see how they do. Well, I'll call it A to Z testing. Why not make 26 or 100 or 200 different variations with AI and run all those tests simultaneously? So the ability to do things quickly in a large format are some of the other kind of ancillary ways that AI is really going to help us.
And so you're really seeing it kind of from the front end through the back end.
Yeah, and we can keep going, right? Order management for like people who do ship from store, how to optimize those orders, because like today at the Vitamin Shop, we have 200 rules to decide where an order ships from. And we still miss a lot of opportunities to optimize that. So turn that over to an AI at some point, and that'll be another. So from the front end to the testing, to the dev, to customer care, all the way through order fulfillment and even follow-up, post-purchase, every one of those areas will be improved or are being improved by AI right now.
And obviously some of this is on the back end, not necessarily what customers are seeing, but there are also plenty of parts of the business that customers do see. And so as we think about the need for humans to get involved in certain elements of brand voice and maybe not wanting to automate everything, let's talk a little bit about how we're balancing that in the customer experience. Suruchi, do you want to start there?
Yeah, I mean, maintaining our brand's sanctity and voice is paramount, as it is for, I think, most retailers. So we've been slow in adopting AI. We've been mostly using it as a productivity enhancing tool. I think you've heard this from many other panelists today as well. It's more about, not about going and replacing our teams. It's not about, can we use this to now go and produce all of our video content or produce campaigns. It's more about, we have our base imagery, we have our base copy. Can we then now bring AI to just, start with AI and then have editors and art editors on top of it and produce the right kind of content. Same thing in the merchandising example that I gave you. Today, our merchants do all of this in spreadsheets, right? And so they're spending countless number of hours doing this and very painstakingly choosing every product that's showing on the site and the ordering of it and things like that. Well, AI can make it 50% better, right? You have a starting point, and then the merchants can go in and start to tweak and make it customer perfect, as we want to call it, right? So AI can actually give you a really important starting point in a platform, and after that, you bring in your human and creative touch on top of it, and the productivity is completely at a different level.
Customer perfect, not a high bar or anything. In trying to meet that standard or even a slightly lower one, Fayez, can you talk a little bit about training and whether it's the shopping agents or people you're actually trying to train to make sure that they have that brand voice? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, so I think two ways. One of the things that's excited us a lot compared to what we've done for the last, pre the generative AI world is you can have a lot more input, especially from products and merchants early on, because we kind of sit down and look at how do we get the agent to be the best product expert and have it be very nuanced. I was talking to somebody at a big department store, and they said, hey, if somebody is in the aisle looking at Liz Claiborne versus a jockey, you as a salesperson would deal with it very differently, but that's not how technology works today, right? So turns out you can solve that with an agent in a pretty straightforward way with something like playbooks. And then there's all these new skills around agent engineering and prompt engineering that you have to get the brands and retailers comfortable with as well, which is a key part of our role, right? We bring the scale of understanding how to work with hundreds of brands and retailers and deploying this at scale and figuring out how to bring those learnings out.
For customer care, Andy, I know you touched on that a little bit earlier. Obviously, that's both an opportunity and also just a need when there is a customer issue. What are you doing from a training standpoint or more generally to think about that balance of automation, AI, and human touch?
Yeah, I don't know how many of you have ever had to call American Airlines, but you get a useless AI and then you start screaming operator agents. I think
we've all been there.
Yeah, first of all, you want to start with being very clear to your customer that it is an AI you're talking to. I think that's really important. I know there's a lot of people that have different feelings about that, but just be clear about it. And
is that something, sorry to interrupt, is that something that you recommend stating upfront?
I do, absolutely. I think it's part of transparency and clarity, and I think that doesn't turn people off. Maybe sometimes they're happier if they could solve it without having to have a talk with a human. But if not, make it very easy to escape out, right? There's a way to escape out. And then, and I know you guys do this, right? Just learn from the interaction. So if it's a failed interaction, every time someone had to go off to an agent, what happened, right? So study that and then teach it back into the model and learn. I spent time reading hundreds of chat conversations with customers. And what I learned is customers say the darndest things, And so it's really hard for the AI to know. They're calling, they're telling about their kids or, the soccer game and why they're late and they missed their box. And so it might get an AI really confused, going off on a tangent, but a human knows what to do. So as they learn more and more, I think it's really important. And start with the easy things, Wizmo, where's my order? And then maybe you can move to more complicated over time.
With that transparency in mind, Andy, are there times, and I'll ask this of everybody, when not having a human in the loop has gone wrong?
Well, I got a whole list, so let me keep talking. All right, so Air Canada had a bot that promised a gentleman that he would get a full refund on his flight. They didn't honor it, it wasn't their policy, so he actually sued them and won. So the company was forced to back up with the commitment the AI made. There's another example where a gentleman, I'll call him a hacker, he did a lot of prompt engineering and convinced a car dealership site to sell him a Chevy Tahoe for $1. Mm-hmm. They did not honor it, and so far they haven't been sued, but he had a long chat with the AI and finally convinced it to say it's a legally binding offer of $1 for the $76,000 car. And then I won't mention which LLM this was because I don't like these guys being mad at me, but really near and dear to our heart working in vitamins, an LLM recommended that somebody eat a small rock every day to get their daily allowance of minerals. Do not do that. Do not do that. You can buy really good vitamins and minerals at the Vitamin Shop. So here's just a few of many, many examples of AI gone awry.
No, and it's good for everybody to know and to be on the lookout for those. Who's accountable when something like that happens?
The robots.
Easy to blame a robot, right?
I'll give you an example. I had a first-hand experience of this, and it'll answer the accountability question too. We, and I won't name names either, but we use a tool that's an AI tool that sits on top of some of your Meta and Google algos and does some real-time bid optimization. And what we've done with this is anytime they come with bid suggestions, optimization suggestions, a human is in the loop to say, yes, I'm okay to make these changes and go execute. And one day that rule got broken and it started to execute on the behalf of the team. And by the time the team realized we had overspent by 50K. And at that point, 50K doesn't sound like a huge number in the grand scheme of things, but this is budget that now the team is panicking, where are they going to go find it and stuff. In that case, we did hold the vendor accountable because it was a rule that got broken, like something actually got broken there. But I think the accountability question, going back to the regulation piece, is very real. Like if AI does go buy a house on my behalf, I think there are state laws that are saying that I have authorized the agent to do that on my behalf, and the house is mine. So I think the accountability question is very much a gray area.
Yeah. Andrew, from your perspective, have you seen this happen at all, and what safeguards do you have in place to avoid it?
I don't have any epic. I'm not going to try to follow those stories because nothing like that. But from a leadership perspective, I'd say the interesting, maybe anecdote, we'll see if this analogy works, but our founder told the company, just more broadly, I'd rather you get speeding tickets and not parking tickets. And when I think of AI, bear with me, I don't know if this is freestyle.
Exactly.
I'd say that as a leader, you're driving the car. So let's say AI is a new shiny car, whatever that one was for $1. We got was it a Tahoe?
Yeah, Tahoe.
Yeah, so we're driving a Tahoe. That can fit a lot of people, right? Either way, if you're getting a speeding ticket or a parking ticket, you're footing the bill as the driver. And so it ultimately comes back to us. But you got to bring people along as passengers. Like, where are you driving to? How are you going to actually do this? So I think it's providing your team, and then also sort of the other management team, the ability to say, all right, I'm getting where you're going, but I also have the feeling if you're going to try to push the envelope a bit, that as the driver, I'm going to be able to look to you and say, gosh, we made a mistake, just like you did. Like, all right, I'm going to help you figure out how to get the vendor to give us this back. So I do think if it's a little bit more explicit with a team, I think it helps, knowing that some of these conversations and people pushing might be very new or potentially uncomfortable for some folks.
Definitely. Well, before this goes too dark on the risks, I'm sure everybody would actually like to hear what we can do to track metrics, what metrics we can look at to know that the customer experiences being provided are the ones that are intended. Fayez, how are you working with your clients on making sure that that's happening?
Yeah, I think we're obviously, out of all the things that were obviously mentioned, we look at areas that are surprising, right? So for example, I remember we're launching on a $4 billion GMV retailer, and the average age was like 58 plus. And the predominant thinking was, well, they won't like AI. Turns out we were completely wrong. Within a week, we found out it had the highest satisfaction rates, right? So right out of the gate, you measure engagement satisfaction. So you care about that. Obviously, we are all in the business of generating more revenue for our customers, so you care about conversion, but that can be lagging. But you also care about negative impact. One of the things that we're extremely careful about is sometimes these agents can be so good at talking to you that they forget to convert customers. Or in fact, if somebody's going to convert, they actually get in the way because it is so engaging, right? So you first take a do no harm approach, especially when you're operating at scale, to figure out, great, it's working, phenomenal engagement, but then turns out you're actually getting in the way of conversion. So how do you identify really quickly who are what we call the movable middle? Who are the ones that wouldn't have bought anyway? That is going to be truly incremental. That's the segment of your customers that we really try to focus agentic experiences on, because a lot of other times you're just trying to get out of the way to a conversion.
Yeah. And whether it's you working with a number of different retailers or any kind of GM or e-commerce leader thinking about their own team, obviously collaboration across teams is really necessary. This isn't living in one siloed functional area, as hardly anything does. Andrew, when you look at your business and kind of running it holistically, what are you doing to ensure collaboration across teams? specifically, as it relates to integrating and AI and checking on these experiences?
I think what's interesting is that sometimes it's sort of the balance of, is this a team-wide, company-wide effort to get people on board to tackle certain things? I think there's certain folks initially that we've identified when it comes to these cross-functional, whether you're in merchandising, marketing, data science, but I think you have to have folks who are maybe a combination of sort of curious, authentic, and resilient. That acronym is CAR, I just realized, but the willingness to learn and lean into these other focus areas, to collaborate, authenticity in that you're kind of doing it not to just kind of politically, internally sort of up-level yourself. You actually want to go through this, and then a lot of things will fail on the resiliency side. So what we've done across these functions is kind of step back and take folks who sort of internally meet those requirements, but then figure out on these projects or problems, we actually try to shrink it down a bit. So in automation problems where we have really big scale data issues, it's like, okay, there's institutional human knowledge that without marrying those things together, you end up actually having things collapse and fall down that you could have gone and really accelerated had you done that. And then different teams and silos, once they see the ability for that to click together, you get way more people on board and you can expand that scope. So I think if you can make things digestible, maybe not as complex, and then include different people who are more apt to tackle this initially, I do think that that's a really effective way to start the process. Like leaping into full AI automation is sort of fraught with complexity when you're looking now back at sort of the different cross-functional teams that we might manage.
That makes a ton of sense. Suruchi, you've mentioned brand a couple of times. How are you making sure, specifically as it relates to brand touch points, that humans are not being left out of the loop? And do you think that they'll always need to be in the loop or not?
Well, for the sake of the human race, I want to believe that humans will always be needed and in the loop. The shape that it'll take can shift over time, right? As regulations come, as AI tools develop, how humans get involved or stay involved will, of course, change. And I kind of hinted at that in my intro itself. Like for us, being very true to that humanness that's the ethos of our brand. We work with artists who are doing these very human-created designs, and we've been very explicit about not necessarily enabling AI in these designs. And so they are truly, genuinely human-produced. We've also kind of seen a lot of value in giving that human connection or the touch. So when you, so as a bride, I don't know how many people here have gone through a wedding planning journey recently, it's nerve-wracking. It's like, you don't know where to start as a bride. And so while Minted does stationery, we've also actually built a team of experts who can just guide you on your overall journey and work with you on a day-to-day basis and say, this is how much you can spend on this is the right time to plan this, things like that. And that's the concierge type of services that I think brands who are offering a lot of that in this world of AI are going to start to stand apart. Because everybody else otherwise is going to be talking to a machine. And the output of a machine and the output of a human is going to start to feel very differentiated as more and more of this happens.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for that. Andy, what about you in thinking about whether humans will always have to be in the loop or whether AI ultimately takes over? Do you have a point of view on that?
Yeah, I think I have two answers. I think that we're starting to see watchdog AI, so an AI will have an answer. At the Khan Academy, which teaches math, they have an AI that does the answer, then another one that checks the math, because LLMs are really bad at math. Another one to make sure it's appropriate for children. So they have several AIs that are guarding it. So I think some of these things we talked about, there'll be an AI watchdogging our AI. But I still believe always there'll be a desire and a need for human interaction. In our business at the Vitamin Shop, people do research, they use AI, they go on our website, they go on our app. The store employees, we call them health enthusiasts, they're trained, they're knowledgeable, they learned about the products. But having that one-to-one conversation about your specific needs, we think that'll be around for a long time, if not forever.
Any crystal ball predictions from anybody else on how this evolves?
Looking at me? No.
I just want to say no one's behind on AI, because if you think you're behind, it's changing every day. So
right, nobody's behind, nobody's a total expert yet, exactly.
I mean, I think what I'll say is, allow yourself to not know the answers. Allow yourself, because as you were talking about the automation space, the marketing space is completely shifting. The search landscape completely shifting. And so when we think about KPIs and measurement and working with different teams, it's all about being open and acknowledging that we don't know the answers. Things around us are shifting, and we don't know what the role of a human is going to be.
Yeah.
Can our team even weigh in on certain changes that are coming our way or not? So I think just being open to also saying that I don't know the answer is going to
I think not having the answers is a good note to end on. That said, we at least do have a few clear takeaways for today, I think, from this group. One is that balancing human interactions with AI is critical, arguably more critical than ever given the fast pace of the evolution. And also because of that, the second big takeaway is that it's not set it and forget it. You can't just kind of get it going and step back, but you really do want to have those clear checks and balances and be measuring it and ensuring that the customer experience is as intended. And then lastly, like any big thing any company is working on, there are so many different teams that need to be a part of it, from the front end to the back end, across functional areas. And so that idea of really leading with influence and bringing people together across matrixed organizations is really, I think the importance of that can't be overstated, the collaboration and the influence there. So with that, thank you all for being here this morning, and look forward to continuing the conversation.